What's going on, everyone? MVP here, bringing you guys week 3 of NES Season 2. What's going on, everyone? MVP here, bringing you guys week 3 of NES Season 2 for your Detroit Darkrais. And this week we'll be taking on CO and the Oakland Mudbraiders. This is a cross-conference match, so this is just one of those weeks where you need to or want to pick up a win, be able to help your record out a little bit. For the future when it comes down to more divisional play. So let's go over the team real quick. So this is a little bit more of a defensive team focus this week. He has some pretty good offensive threats, and I feel like in the right matchups, my tanks will outperform his tanks in one-on-ones and such. So let's go over it real quick. First, we'll talk about Gramble. Gramble is sort of this defensive mix, physical attacker. This week, first time I'm bringing it. It's got the Intimidate, which is really nice. And then I'm putting in a bunch of HP and defensive investment so that it can really do well against things like the Mega Lopunny. Next, we have the Amoonguss, just another full-out physical tank. Forgot to run Regenerator. Actually, I had Effect Spore on. Might have been helpful, but it doesn't really turn out to be. So, just more of a defensive tank for this week. Heatran, a bulky special attacker this week, like full-on special investment 252 plus, with some HP bulk and some other little defensive bulk, I believe. I put enough like speed EVs into it to outspeed things like the Cresselia, expecting things like T-Wave. And then, let's see, move on to the Porygon 2, special defensive tank, just Porygon 2 doing the same with the Eviolite, recover, all that greatness. Rotom Wash. Sort of a mixed tank this week, I believe. Again, running things like the Toxic instead of the Will-O-Wisp because I believe Toxic was more important. And actually, real quick, the first 5 mons I've talked about all have Toxic. I felt like Toxic would be really important this week, and it kind of was. And you'll see how this battle goes with the Toxic. Definitely could have been better, but and after building a team, I'm like, wow, I have 5 Toxics. And then, last but not least, Salamence, who is our Dragon Dancer, packing Dragonium Z this week. That Dragonium Z is for kind of breaking through the Cresselia. Hoping, it's not much of a defensive wall or such, so that Dragonium Z will be able to get through it or weaken it enough to where another attack will be able to take it out. So it's got things like Dragon Dance as well. Dragon Claw, Earthquake, just good coverage all around. So let's start the battle. So here for the lead, we see Heatran versus the Lantern. Yes, the Lantern. And then I figured here, he's probably going to want to switch out or do something else. He doesn't think that I would be willing to risk my Heatran this early on against the Lantern. But we see the U-turn, so it actually turns out to be the Zoroark, which he brought. I went for the Toxic here first turn because I knew Lantern would be one of those things I need to get out of the way right away, but bringing the Cresselia would be good enough. So I get the Toxic off. I get Thunder Waved here. I went for the substitute expecting the Thunder Wave, so this kind of Heatran set was to counter the Cresselia expecting like a T-Wave, but unfortunately I speed invested to outdo 0 speed Cresselia, and he put in a few speed EVs, so he outsped me. So unfortunately we get paralyzed after this first turn, but we do get a sub, so hopefully we're able to do something with this. He switches out into his Druddigon, sort of my counter to Heatran. It's got things like the Earthquake. So here I just go for a Toxic because it's sort of another very tanky Pokemon that I have to get passed around. So Toxic Kick, and I switch into the Granbull, which is a good switch in here. Obviously you see little damage. I have the Fairy Dragon advantage here, Intimidate. It's a good setup for me right now. So he switches back out into his Cresselia. I go for the Heal Bell. Brought Heal Bell because, expecting well, I wasn't really expecting much. It was just some extra tech I had. I didn't really know exactly what to run, so I slapped Heal Bell on. Definitely helped there. And obviously some of his tanks are packing some status as well, like the Cresselia, so that helps out. So go for the Heal Bell, he brings in the Cresselia. He goes for the Moonlight, gets some health back. I go for the Play Rough here, try and get a damage check, but he's packing the Rocket Helmet, which isn't very helpful to me. And I don't do a whole lot of damage, so he goes for the Thunder Wave here. I go for another Toxic, predicting a switch. Obviously that did not work out there, taking some more Toxic damage. He switches out at 50%. He brings in the Oh god, Combuskin. Yes, he brings in the Combuskin. This is the first week we've seen Combuskin, I believe, so he's got the speed boost ability, which is probably the only reason why it's useful at all. So I bring in my Salamence here. I feel like this is a good time to be able to get a setup going, a Dragon Dance setup. So I bring in my Salamence. He's intimidated, so that is good for me. So that means, like, if he even wants to attack, he won't be doing as much damage, and I have a much safer setup. He goes for the Rock Slide. Obviously, he outspeeds. That actually does a decent chunk of damage, but not enough. I go for the Dragon Dance, luckily with no flinch. I go for the Dragon Claw here, pick up an easy KO, so the Combusken is out of the way. Now he goes to bring in the Mega Lopunny, and this is kind of where the battle took a turn, for the worse for me at least. You'll see in a moment. But it's very early on, you'll see. This is a pretty long battle, but early on, it really hurt me because here we go. We see the fake out come from the Mega Lopunny, and it's a critical hit. That was really detrimental to me because Salamence was basically my #1 physical attacker, and basically like one of my only physical attackers. The only other Mon is Granbull, and he's only got like Play Rough and Earthquake, which is still good coverage for the rest of his team. Lopunny's hit super effective, Druddigon hit super effective, Zoroark hit super effective, Earthquake gets the Lantern, all very good. But now I'm playing the match a little bit differently now. Obviously now I'm kind of switching into full defensive mode here because I've just lost my offense. And I feel like definitely I could have played some things better. I'll definitely talk about that later. But losing the Salamence to a fake out critical hit definitely hurts. So here I bring in the Granbull, automatic check to the Lopunny. He brings in the Cresselia. So he sees this as a good opportunity to get off of Moonlight because obviously my Granbull hasn't really been able to touch this Cresselia at all. I go for another Play Rough for whatever reason. So I just get some damage off. You know, I'm taking Rocket Helmet, which isn't the best. He goes for Moonlight, tries to get more health back. I go for the Toxic, you know, predicting another switch here. Goes for the Psychic. I take about 37%, which wasn't too good. I was expecting a T-Wave there, so I went for the Heal Bell. And definitely one of the flaws about this game for me is that I left Granbull in a little bit too much, especially against like Cresselia. I left Granbull in way too long because it turns out that his Granbull counter was the Cresselia. So, and I originally built Granbull with some special investment. I originally built Granbull to be a mixed, but then I took off all special investment and put it into defense, which I guess would have been pretty good, but I never got it into too many situations where it really benefited from the defensive investment, aside from the early Druddigon matchup. So I definitely let it take too much damage than it should have from things like the Cresselia Psychic. So I switch right here, obviously the damage too much now, and I switch in the Rotom, my special tank. He switches into the Lantern. I go for the Volt Switch. Okay, so now I find he has the Volt Absorb, which is fine by me. He goes for, I go for the Toxic the Lantern because I need the Toxic, and then he goes for the Heal Bell, which heals up half his team, which is pretty crazy. Goes for the Soak. I assume he wanted to get like a super effective Volt Switch off of there, which he would have gotten if I stayed in, but I switched to my Porygon 2, my other special tank this week. And then he switches into what we presumed to be the Cresselia, but it goes for the knockoff, so that in turn is the Zoroark. I get the Toxic off on it, which doesn't really matter too much, but now unfortunately I've lost my Eviolite. He U-turns out. I recover here because obviously I've taken some damage already and I expect to take some more damage, so check that. Brings the Lantern back in. Obviously Toxic, can't Toxic what's already Toxic. Goes for the Soak here. My Mugus, Pack and Black Sludge actually taking damage now because I'm a pure water type, and that Soak actually definitely hurt my Amoonguss in this match. You'll see later, I do end up getting Toxic in my Amoonguss, so that is actually pretty funny, but now my Amoonguss could have actually, like, as a physical tank, it was built physically, so the Lantern didn't pack like Ice Beam or anything. Could have definitely done more work in this game, but that Soak definitely hurt it. So I'll bring in the Rotom Wash. Just, you know, the special tank, the answer to this Lantern, and it gets Toxic. Go for a Hydro Pump because that's like the only damaging thing I have because I was packing Hydro, Thunderbolt, Volt Switch, and Toxic. I missed the Toxic there. That's kind of whatever. He goes back into the Mega Lopunny. I switch out into my Amoonguss, which is my physical tank. He misses, which is kind of lucky for me. He takes 50%. Unfortunately, he's kind of at 51. You'll see why that matters later. I go for the Spore. just to be able to put it to sleep, the Mega Lopunny to sleep. But he brings in the Lantern, and it has goggles, the safety goggles. So that was definitely a surprise. Not expecting that. That was just better planning on his part. So he got that. Goes for another soak. I go for the Sludge Bomb, just hoping to pick up a Toxic there. Don't, so I need to switch out because I am now a Water type. Tries to go for that super effective Volt Switch again, but I am into my Porygon 2, which is a complete tank, especially. But unfortunately, I felt maybe Porygon's 2 time has just run out. It wasn't really doing much in the match, and he could just easily switch out into something that would counter it. So he switched into the Mega Lopunny, and it's just an easy high jump kick from there. I bring in my Grambull, which is just my obvious Mega Lopunny counter. Switches into his Cresselia, which is obvious there. I go for the Play Rough, just hoping he would stay in and probably go for like a return, but he doesn't, so I take a little bit of damage there. He heals up. I go for a Toxic, unfortunately missed that. That was probably a bit of a bigger Toxic miss than anything. Take psychic damage. Alright, now my Grambull is almost dead, unfortunately. And let me actually remove the P2. Okay, so sorry about that. Now we're back. So obviously I needed the switch. I felt like I had the switch out here. I felt like Grambull just had a little bit of use with the Intimidate at least, so I switched back into my Rotom Special Tank. Go for the Volt Switch. Poor choice. He goes back into Lantern. Don't know what I was really thinking there. I just go for the Toxic again because I just needed to get the Toxic off on the thing, but kind of ends up being a wasted turn in a way because he Heal Bells. So switch out. I felt like I needed to preserve the Rotom, and I felt like this was probably my one chance to set up with the Heatran. If the Lantern was to remain in, he goes in the high jump kick from the Lopunny. Actually misses again, but unfortunately because of some HP investment, he lives on 1%. So unfortunately the Mega Lopunny is still around. It got the critical hit on my Salamence, and then it got 2 high jump kick misses, which is lucky for me, but I never touched the Mega Lopunny. He never let me touch the Mega Lopunny, other than when I could have gotten another attack after the fake out turn. So unfortunately it still lives, still around to be such a nuisance to my team. So I bring in the Rotom. He goes for the high jump kick, obviously more likely going to hit it that time. Takes my Rotom. I felt like it was no better to just, it was just time to let go. So I Toxic the Lantern here. Goes for the Soak. I go for the Sludge Bomb, just needing to get some damage off here. So now my Amoonguss, I'm just leaving it in. I need to knock out this Lantern right away. Unfortunately, now I get Toxicked because I had this. I just felt like I needed to stay in and take out the Lantern. He brings in the Lopunny. I decided to Intimidate it. I don't know if that was like the right choice right there to stay in. I didn't do damage calcs for that. Well, hold on a second. I'm just realizing now. Let me back up. That was a really bad play on my part now. Thinking about it, he went for the Ice Punch. I'm pretty sure now he 100% forgot that I was Water type. I forgot I was Water type. Maybe I was just expecting the high jump kick again or the fake out. I think probably the fake out. So actually thinking about it now, it wasn't entirely a bad play on my part because now he just brings in the Lopunny. He gets a fake out, he gets decent damage off, then I'm taking Black Sludge and Toxic, so it was probably actually just the safest play for me to switch. He goes for the Ice Punch, which was actually very odd because even if I switch out in the Heatran, I resist that and such, but I switch out here, I go in the Grambull, get the Intimidate off, he goes for the Ice Punch, so I assume it was more he forgot that I was Water type, but also at the same time, it was just the safer play for me to switch out because then if he fakes out, then my Amoonguss is just completely dead. So here he switches into his Druddigon. Now obviously you see here I'm getting Black Sludge health back, but then I'm taking Toxic damage. He's just going to Earthquake this one out. He probably just wants, it's an easy trade for him, Druddigon versus Amoonguss. Plus if I switch in the Heatran during his Earthquakes, then that's basically it for me there. So his Druddigon goes down Toxic, I go down the Toxic unfortunately, so now I'm left with one Pokemon left. Heatran goes for the fake out, just gets some easy damage off, I'm flinched, and then he can go for the easy outspeed high jump kick to end the game. So anyways, that's the battle there. Pretty long match. GG's the CO. That was a great match overall. And I completely forgot to erase the Pokemon. But anyways, all the Pokemon are gone. I have to get better at that. I completely forget to do that. I get so caught up in this commentary. I really love talking about my matches. Sometimes I just completely forget to tally off the Pokemon as I go along. But that was a great match with CO. Other than the sort of unlucky crit at the beginning with the Salamence. Because definitely, if I at least gotten damage off, I think looking at calcs afterwards, it would be a damage roll with the Lopunny. So it would have been down to, like, even if I didn't KO the Salamence with the Dragon Claw somehow, it'd only be at like 2%. And then one missed high jump kick, or just one hit with any of my other Pokemon, because it's so early in the match, my Pokemon are healthy, I can manage to take a hit or something from the Lopunny if he decides to keep it in, and I can get a kill on it. So that Lopunny definitely mattered later for the match. And then the HP investment, obviously. It was very unlucky on his part to have gotten 2 high jump kick misses, but also very kind of lucky that the investment was made so that he can miss 2 and still survive at 1%. So, you know, I can't really be mad at that. That's just one of those Pokemon things. It's just a part of Pokemon. You know, sometimes you just get like one bad turn of RNG, and that can really affect some things later. But sometimes you just got to play it out and be able to turn the match into your favor. Obviously, tried very hard. It was a very drawn-out match between our tanks, obviously, because definitely that my team was definitely more tanky. He was able to at least be able to swap between fewer of his Pokemon, but regardless, very good match anyways. So unfortunately, we fall to 1 and 2 on the season. Not too worried right now. We do play another divisional opponent next week that is pretty good. One of the better teams in the league, I would definitely say. And compared to last season, we're kind of sitting in the same spot record-wise. I'm not worried at all. So, anyways, I'm done rambling here. So, hope you guys enjoyed the match. Very good games to CO. And anyways, thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.